Demare Dezeurn just committed to the Oklahoma Sooners. We're going to take a look at his sophomore film. His junior year film's loading, already 2 games into the season, has already 5 touchdowns in 2 games and 250 yards. Really explosive start to the junior year. We just don't have enough film to really give a full evaluation or make a fair opinion of Demare Dezeurn off of just 2 games. Anyways, what do we see from the sophomore film? This dude has a 10.3 200 meter time. If you're not familiar with track, I'm only somewhat familiar with track just from being, talking about football on here. We kind of have to be. That's fast. That's not only fast, but that's fast with like 3 exclamation points at the end. And we're going to see that on the highlight film. He's not only fast in a 100-meter sense, in a 40-yard sense. This guy in 10 yards, the explosiveness is just full tilt upfield. It doesn't take a lot for him to get to his top end. We're going to see that in the high school film. That's what's going to translate to him getting early playing time at Oklahoma. That's the stuff that definitely translates. So is this guy just a track athlete? Is this only a guy that you're going to use situationally on screens, maybe to stretch the field every now and then? No, I think we're going to see some really high-end change of direction ability. We're just not going to see it in a route running context as much as I think that he can do. This is kind of the trap that we walk into with these track guys in high school, is we don't really always get a whole lot of route running out of them just because their high school coaches aren't asking them to really run that many routes, right? It makes sense. If you're a high school offensive coordinator, you got one of the fastest wide receivers in the country, are you going to let him run routes, or are you just going to try to give him the ball in space? You can already see how good Demare Dezeurn is at just having the ball in his hands. There's really no reason for him to get upfield or to run actual routes as much as some other guys. Anyways, when we do see him with the ball in his hands, we see how easy the change of direction ability is. This guy has actual football instincts, which we don't always see with the track athletes. And why do I say that? When he has the ball in his hands, this isn't a guy that's just trying to go full tilt into the end zone. He actually understands how to make people miss in the open field. So I really like this guy's upside first with the long speed, as a guy that could stretch the field, and then as a gadget player, a guy that's going to make people miss in the open field, a guy that you can just do these really quick screens to, these end arounds, and have him be really effective. And I do think this guy has upside to be a really good, just wide receiver, guy that's going to run routes. We're just not going to see it as much in high school just because of this kind of stuff. Why would you do anything besides give him end arounds when he's going to gain at least 30 yards every time he touches the ball? Makes sense to me, but athletically, there's a difference between what we see athletically and then in a football context. I think athletically, this dude can change direction. And there was one where we're going to see him kind of start and might have missed it. It was kind of like a hitch and go, and you could see just how easy the change of direction ability is. That's going to make him a really high-end route runner at some point. And this is kind of the conversation to have with these guys that have he's probably a 4-3 type wide receiver. The route running doesn't have to be perfect. If you're so fast, you're kind of ahead of the ball already. You can kind of not have to be as nuanced. But I do think you see the explosiveness. That's really what I want to emphasize with Demare Dezeurn, is the explosiveness and the long speed. That's what makes him one of the top wide receivers in the country. And then this ability after the ball in his hands is pretty good as well. So I'm really excited to watch the junior year film. And, I'm already convinced on the athleticism. Some of these guys, you watch the junior year film or the sophomore film, and you're like, all right, they're 6'2", whatever. They're pretty good. We just have to kind of develop as an athlete. Not the case with Dezeurn. This guy is fast enough to play at Oklahoma right now. You could get him in the Crimson to play Temple on Saturday if you really needed to. But as a wide receiver, I do want to see. We're going to see how the route running develops throughout high school, even though I doubt we see him do much besides these end arounds and screens. That's not his fault. I'm not blaming him for that, but just the reality of the situation. Really excited to see what he turns into, though, because this dude's a good football player. But that was Demare Dezeurn. You guys let me know what you think about him, if I was off base with anything. We're going to watch his junior year film as it comes out, and this is definitely a guy that, he had a 250 or 150 wide yard game. We're going to try to get more film of that stuff up. But thanks for watching.